After studying this module, you shall be able to know about different writing instruments. You will be able to identify and evaluate different writing instruments. The writing instrument is one of the important aspects of writing because a person used to write with an ink pen may write with slight difference from ball pen, which cannot be recognized at once. There are many writing instruments, but it can be classified further as paper, leaves, metals, etc., pen, pencil, etc., ink, blood, plant juices, chemicals, etc. Paper was made later on with the development of human beings. Previously, the documents were prepared by writing on the bark of trees like papyrus, and the metal like copper, that is tampatra, are also being used to keep the records in the written form. With the development of human being, they developed paper by plants and used those as writing surface. There are many types of paper which are available. The use of graphite and coal was in action before the development of the instrument used for writing like pen, pencil, etc. These development of pen gave rise to its requirement of ink, and this ink was then prepared either from plants, extract or chemicals. Blood may also be sometimes have been used to convey a message at the crime scene, and thus it may also be called as one of the writing instrument, and same in the case with paint and some of the plant juices. Thus, the choice of writing instrument determines the type of work or to be done at the particular surface with a specific instrument of writing, and all these specificities which vary from instrument to instrument can be of importance for the examiner to determine the exact source of writing instrument used and any other significance of using that specific writing instrument. The use of writing instrument is also dependent on the habit of a person. Some persons like to write with gel point pen or neat and smooth surface of writing, while some others are using the ballpoint pen and write on comparatively rough surface. Since the identification of handwriting depends on consideration of all its elements, the kind of writing instrument used for a particular sample may have some influence on its usefulness as a standard. Pen and ink writing contains certain identifying characteristics that are not fully revealed in pencil specimen, while a change in the style of writing, for example from a ballpoint to a broad tip fluid ink marker, also may introduce writing variation or conceal features that would otherwise be present. Furthermore, the reader must remember that a ballpoint pen produces writing that is not completely comparable to work of the nib of a fountain pen, for the latter represent a distinctive class of writing instrument. In addition, the porous tip pen produces writing stroke that have still other slightly different characteristics. Gel pen represent yet another class of ink line. The composition, size, shape and ruling of paper may measurably affects the writing. Many writers adjust the size of their signature to some degree to the space allowed for signing. Standards or rule forms permit consideration to how the individual habitually arranges his or her writing in relation to the printed baseline. Each element may assist in reaching a more accurate solution to some problems. Standards prepared with comparable writing instruments and on an appropriate paper or provides the forensic document examiner with the most useful material. It may be possible to reach an accurate conclusion, and the document examiner often does with standards that were not prepared with the similar pens or pencil, or on the paper exactly the same composition, size, shape and ruling as the question document. However, the forensic document examiner should look for the very best standards upon which to base an opinion, not just what will do. There are many cases every year in which less than ideal standards seriously strict the findings. Thoroughness on the part of the investigator or attorney from the start means each limiting factor will be considered and eliminated whenever possible. The influence of writing instrument and paper can be readily controlled with request standards. It is necessary only to furnish the writer with a pen or pencil similar to one used in question document. At the same time, paper should be selected with some physical characteristics and ruling as disputed sample, trimming it, if necessary, to proper size and shape. With this preparation, personal habits affected by writing materials are less apt to be excluded from the request specimen. When the question writing is in ink, it is important to recognize that what kind of pen was used. Pen is an inclusive or general term, and as discussed in other chapter, there are several classes of instruments, each with sustainably different writing characteristics. Today, ballpoint, gel point and roller ball pens are most common and popular. Ink rolls onto the paper with non-flexible ball. Some different writing instruments or characteristics are revealed with a gel and fiber pen, especially if there is some flexibility of the point, as can be the case with fiber pens. Fiber tip pens generally produce wider stroke other than instruments, strokes that can hide details that would otherwise be present. Not every writer can write with equal ease with each instrument, and if one class of pen has been used for all question writing, then this kind of pen should be used for least sum of request standards. Dear student, now we will discuss about the writing conditions. The writer should be seated comfortably at a desk or table where question specimens are known to have been written under less normal conditions, such as while standing or resting the paper against the wall. The suspect should be asked to execute some supplementary standards in a similar position when the exact writing conditions are unknown, but the question writing suggests some abnormal writing positions. Specimens should take in several different ways. For example, standing and resting the document on high counter or bending over a table. Writing with the paper on a clipboard held in the hand or on the pad resting on his or her knee. These will supplement the normal seated writing position. An exact record of how each specimen is written should be made. Thus, with the combination of standards prepared under common and unusual writing conditions, the effects of these change can be fully studied. Now let us see the types of pen and its specific functioning. First is the ball pen. Among the writing instruments, the ball pen has gained much popularity, and it is probably most widely used writing instrument throughout the world. Although the instrument has been invented in the late 80s, the writing instrument was not a mass product until 1945 or so. In 1945, the Reynolds ball pen was introduced in the market, and the first pen was sold in New York for only $12.50. Since the time, ball pens are achieving acclaim, and they have almost superseded fountain pen. Now let us see the functioning of a ball pen. The ball pen consists of small rotating ball fitted into a socket like device at the end of a tube, which act as ink reservoir. The ink is fed through ball housing by the gravity. When ball rotates with the motion of a pen, a thin film of ink is formed and the ink transforms onto the surface. The ink used in ball pen is a viscous past-like material, unlike usual fluid ink used in fountain pen. Now identifying the work of a ball pen. This writing instrument has some different features which help in differentiating it from other writing instrument. The features of ball pen are like skipping. In the ball pen during writing, sometimes the ink does not pass through the rolling ball, and thus production of strokes lacks ink in the strokes and produces uninked stroke. The skipping is shown in further letters like ball, and thus the production of strokes lacks ink stroke. Similarly, there is another term known as gopping, which is known as the dark deposits of ink in letters. Now let us learn about the porous tip pens. These pens are also known as fiber tip pens, nylon tip pens, reed pens, synthetic tip pens and felt tip pens, which are gaining popularity these days due to uniformity in the strokes and smoothness of spreading of ink. These types of pen are available in two differently constructed writing tips, that is, those stiff porous plastic point and those made up of hard porous fibers. The wider writing tip produces strokes with almost flat appearance, which often has blunt beginning strokes and terminals. The ink line generally has smooth threading of ink with smooth outlines of the margin of the stroke. The fine writing tips are generally made of porous plastic tips, and these sometimes make grooves in the strokes, whereas the medium and wide ranging points do not create any such indentation. The pen writes with the capillary action in which the ink flows down through the tip to the paper during writing. The ink used in these pens are generally fluid in nature, which is either water based or solvent based, and is so compounded that it dries quickly as it comes in contact with the paper. These pens have a very peculiar feature, which is that even if we stop writing and the tip of the pen in contact of the paper, then it will be accumulation of ink at the place. Sometimes the porous tip pens with the broad writing tips may produce a secondary line along with the main ink line, which may be due to the result of tip wear and loosening of some fiber from the main fiber bundle. These pens are generally available in two types of tips, either of the broad nature or of the finer nature. Now let us learn about the roller pens. The ball pens so modified to write with fluid ink are commonly referred as roller pens. These pens are similar to ballpoint pens as constructed. These pens contain a water-based ink of the same general viscosity as found in fountain pen inks. The roller pens sometimes produce grooves in the strokes in same manner as the ball pen, and they sometimes show flowing back of ink at the ends of the strokes, like the strokes found at fountain pen writings. The ink from a roller pen is generally fairly broad with tapered beginning and ending stroke. Now let us learn about the pencil. The pencil is the one of the most ancient writing instrument, and the best factor about the writing instrument is that it has maintained its place as important writing instrument. This instrument has non-flexible writing tip, which is continuously rubbed off while depositing solid material in the form of written line on the surface of the paper. Depending upon the degree of hardness, writing pressure and the nature of the writing surface, the pencil strokes vary in their nature and intensity. When one tries with a weak pressure and where graphite is lesser and the deposits on the surface of the paper is weak, producing a lighter strokes, and when one writes with the heavy pressure and wear of graphite is more and deposits on the surface of paper is great, producing darker strokes. Due to the smooth and rounded point, the pencil, like a ball pen, enables the writer to write faster than he would write with the fountain pen. This can be little benefit to all of the forgers if the bank allows the signature on the withdrawal to form to be done by pencil, because this instrument of writing pencil reveals less about the pen lifts or pen pause, etc., as in the case of pens. Now let us learn about the fountain pens. Fountain pens are used from the ancient time and are considered very classic. Very few people are used to use these because as it has a very peculiar feature of its own use. The fountain pen generally have two flexible nibs which help in production of lines of varying width depending mainly on the flexibility of point and pressure applied during writing. Most of the pens of modern scenario have comparatively stiff nib point which restrict shading and produces strokes comparable to the uniform stroke of porous tip pens. One of the most important feature of the fountain pen is that they use liquid ink which has tendency to penetrate deep into the paper fibers. The fountain pen which consists of broader nib point gives rise to comparatively more shaded strokes and thus the nature of shading depends on angle of pens. Now let us learn about the paper as the writing instrument. Paper is one of the popular writing surface. The oldest of the writing surface is the bark of the herb called papyrus. There is a piece of that paper in the Museum of France which might be around 3500 BC old. One of the most important development in the history of the paper industry took place when the paper was produced from cellulose content of the plant. Its discovery took place after 105 AC and it was discovered by China by Cai Lun. He made the paper by using old cutting of papers, cannabis fibers and mineral fibers. Now let us learn how the paper is manufactured. Mechanical beating of wood to form the lump material. Sizing agents are also added which provide cellular strength to the paper. Some of the sizing material like rosin, starch, animal gelatin, aluminum hydroxide, synthetic polymers. Loading agents are also used in the manufacturing of paper for providing proper weight of the paper according to the requirement like aluminum silicate like kaolin, magnesium silicate like talcum, calcium sulfate called gypsum and calcium carbonate. After all these steps which have been mentioned have completed, then the sheet formation is done, after which a proper coating is given to the paper. This is the last step in the paper manufacturing and produces the end product known as paper. Cellulose is used as raw material for the preparation of paper. The list of some plants with their cellulose like cotton 92 to 97%, hemp 80%, ramen 85%, sisal 77%, common wood 58 to 67%, cereal straws 36 to 37%. Paper is prepared from the wood pulp by mechanical and chemical methods. Newspaper is prepared from mechanical method while some other writing surfaces used for the purpose of writing is made up of chemical process. The composition of paper is decided as the requirement of the work. Now dear student, we will summarize what we have learned in this module. The writing instrument is one of the important aspects of writing because of a person used to write with an ink pen may write with different or slight difference from a ballpoint pen which cannot be recognized at once. The use of writing instrument is also dependent on the habit of a person. Some persons like to write with gel point pen on a neat and smooth surface of writing, while some others use ballpoint pen and write on comparatively rougher surface. Among other writing instruments, the ball pen has gained much popularity and it is probably most widely used writing instrument throughout the world. The ball pen consists of small rotating ball fitted into a socket like device at the end of a tube which act as ink reservoir. In a ball pen during writing sometimes the ink does not pass through the rolling ball and thus production of strokes lack the ink in the strokes and produces an uninked stroke. Porous tip pens are also known as the fiber tip pens, nylon tip pens, reed pens, synthetic tip pens and felt tip pens, which are gaining popularity these days due to uniformity in the strokes and sometimes spreading of ink. The ball pens so modified to write with fluid ink are commonly referred to as roller pens. The pencil, one of the most ancient writing instrument, and the best factor about this writing instrument is that it has maintained its place in important writing instrument. Fountain pens are used from ancient time and are considered very classy. Very few people are used to use it, and thus this is itself a peculiar feature of its use. The fountain pens generally have two flexible nibs which help in production of lines of varying width depending mainly on flexibility of the point and pressure applied during writing. Paper is one of the popular writing surface. The oldest of the writing surface is the bark of tree or herb called papyrus. There is a piece of paper in the Museum of France which might be around 3500 BC old. Newspaper is prepared from the mechanical method, while some other writing surface used for the purpose of writing is made up of chemical process. Dear student, as you know, handwriting is a product of neuromuscular coordination. Handwriting is mainly affected by the writing instrument which is used for the writing purpose. Therefore, it is very important to learn about the features of various writing instruments. Although writing instrument has a very important impact on writing, but there is also a need of the writing instrument to be studied carefully because the features of writing instruments help in detecting the forgery. The writing instrument plays a role, but with that the writing surface is also important because the contact of writing surface with the writing instrument is very important or is a very important aspect. The angle with which a writing instrument falls on the writing surface determine the quality of writing. Sometimes we found a very smooth, a very rhythmic strokes, while sometimes we saw a very poor strokes. These all differences arises due to the angle with which the writing instrument falls on the paper, which makes the individual characteristics of a writer. These all qualities are necessary while considering or while comparing a question document whose origin is not known with the one whose origin is known, that is specimen. We can also use admitted writing for this purpose because it helps in comparison. Writing with the admitted are more important comparative to the specimen, as we know they are written with an unconscious mind. Writing is a means of communication used from ancient time to the modern time. The difference came in the writing due to the various scripts and the various language which are evolving day by day. But the importance of writing instrument cannot diminish because the writing instrument is also gaining popularity with its new development. Earlier we are using ink pens or fountain pens, but now we have switched ourselves towards the modern equipment of writing like ballpoint pen. Although the use of writing instrument has almost diminishing due to the technological advancement, like most of us prefer to type the letter or our notes rather than making handwritten notes. But the importance cannot be forgotten due to its earlier use and the ancient use, because as we know our most of the documents which are ancient are written with the writing instruments like ballpoint pen or fountain ink pens.